and welcome to Regulate and Restore, the Art and Science of Meditation. This is a workshop brought to you by EFR and our trainer and life coach, Sara Klute Behn. Sara is new to the EFR team, but I'm very excited to introduce you all to her, and perhaps someday you'll see her doing a training within your organization. She is also one of our life coaches, so if what Sara is talking about today really resonates with you, give us a call and I'll talk about how you can reach out to EFR at the very end, but give us a call and you can even ask to be coached by Sara. So I'll turn it over to Sara.
Great. Thanks so much, Johanna. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here with you all today to speak about regulate and restore the art and science of meditation. So if this is something that you want to, take some notes on, grab a pen and paper, and we'll definitely be diving into some tools and some, I think, helpful practices that are going to help you with regulating your nervous system and combining what my background is which a little bit of yoga tradition, also with some neuroscience. So I'm Sara Klute Behn. I have a couple of degrees, one in health coaching, one in yoga therapy, and a certificate in lifestyle medicine. So that is what creates my desire to help people live their best life and live doing what they want to do for as long as they want to do it. And so really, I'll get into a little more depth here in just a minute about my background, but I will also love to, like Johanna said, hear from people who are desiring more one-on-one type of life coaching. Anything that resonates with you today, feel free to reach out to me. So today's agenda, we are going to look at my story, of course, and we're going to do a little bit of a grounding to get us started, and then the foundations of yogic wellness, meditation myths, some science of meditation, the states of a mental, emotional body, and all the layers of the body, really, and some practices, a toolkit that you'll be able to walk away with today, some habit integration practices as well, and some resources. So the objectives, of course, today are going to be to learn about meditation and understand the layers of the self, maybe looking at it in a little bit different way than you have before, because it's from that yogic view, and the nervous system. And then explore new techniques, maybe new to you, in breathwork, in body awareness, and meditation. And hopefully today you're going to leave feeling more anchored, having some practices in your tool belt and a plan that you can return to over and over. So a little bit about my story. My personal path to meditation was interesting because I actually started very young with anxiety, and I would say probably middle school time frame was when my anxiety was really a challenge in my life. And then kind of off and on throughout my life, into my adult life, into my 30s. And ultimately, at that point, I was actually postpartum with my second child and really struggling. I was laying awake at night, not able to sleep. So I finally resorted to medication. I needed help, and I was like, okay, I've got to get some sleep. And so I went on medication, but knowing that my goal was to keep it temporary. And luckily around that time, I actually had the good fortune of meeting a life coach myself and started working with him. And he said, I would love to teach you how to meditate. And from that day forward, that was about 2014. So for about at least the last 12 years, I have been a avid meditator, went off the medication within a year. Not saying that that's everybody's story. I'm a big believer that we need both sides sometimes. We need the medication and the meditation. But really, it was something that was a deep conviction in me that I needed to have that to fall back on, and it really did help me evolve. And then I took also that experience that I've had and backed it with education. And so I went deeper into the yoga practice and yoga philosophy, which when you get into yoga philosophy, it's so much more than movement. It is about breathing and mindfulness and meditation and all these ways that we can really build it into our daily life in terms of that yogic philosophy versus just going to a yoga class and going through the movement. I also had the good fortune of working at a hospital for 20 years, and I ran a program that we would have speakers come in. And one of my speakers one time was a heart doctor. His name is Dr. Sarda. He's at Iowa Heart. And Dr. Sarda walked into the program, and it was obviously about heart health. And he said, if you all would just meditate, I would be out of a job. You wouldn't need me as a doctor. And so that just really affirmed to me the conviction, the belief, and the science behind meditation, how powerful it can be. So let's start next with a little bit of grounding. So if we were in person, I would probably do a little more movement. But today we're going to, since we're online, we're going to do some grounding through some breath practices. So I'm going to invite you to sit in your chair comfortably, but kind of, at attention, if you will. So feet are flat on the floor, spine is nice and tall. And you're going to bring your eyes to close or to a soft gaze. Maybe hands fall to your lap. Oftentimes I will say hands down to ground if you feel that feels more natural, or maybe you would bring palms up more in a receiving posture. So as we start here into this grounding, I just invite you to take a few simple breaths, not trying to control it or anything, just kind of start to notice and anchor into your breath. As you get those few breaths kind of out of the way, so to speak, then let's start to lengthen the inhale and lengthen the exhale. Just noticing with each breath, you're able to maybe feel that heartbeat slow down a little bit. You might notice that you're able to bring the breath to some tight spaces or tension that might be in your neck or your shoulders or your abdomen, even your hips, your legs. Just noticing where that breath wants to go and how it can help release maybe that little bit of tension. Next, we're going to go into a little bit more of a framed practice. And what I mean by that is we're going to practice box breathing. Box breathing, I'll just share a little bit with you while you continue to practice your breath right now. But it's going to be an inhale to the count of 4, a hold to the count of 4, an exhale to the count of 4, and then a hold to the count of 4. So we're going to do that 4 times because 4 makes sense. We'll do that 4 times. So I'll give you a moment to take a preparatory inhale, preparatory exhale. And let's begin. Inhale 1, 2, 3, 4, and hold 1, 2, 3, 4, and exhale 1, 2, 3, 4, and hold again 1, 2, 3, 4. That's one loop. Inhale 1, 2, 3, 4, and exhale 1, 2, 3, 4, and hold 1, 2, 3, 4, and hold 1, 2, 3, 4. 2 more times. Inhale 1, 2, 3, 4, and hold 1, 2, 3, 4, and exhale 1, 2, 3, 4, and hold again 1, 2, 3, 4. Last time through. Inhale 1, 2, 3, 4, and hold 1, 2, 3, 4, and exhale 1, 2, 3, 4, and hold 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, let's go back to just a nice natural breath, whatever the body feels is most natural to you, and settle back into the space, maybe blinking those eyes to open when you're ready and just noticing how you feel and maybe even jotting it down. What was the feeling that came up as you, even as you held your breath? Was there anything that bubbled up for you? Sometimes people feel a little bit anxious at first when they're holding their breath, and then that calming feeling of being able to exhale and release. So in yoga, when we are inhaling, we're receiving, and when we're exhaling, we are letting go. So as a way to remind ourselves of that balance of holding on and letting go and being able to receive all at once. So let's dive into some content and then we'll come back to some more practices here in a little bit. So let's look first at the meditation myths. So let's talk about what is meditation? What does it mean to you? What does it look like to you? And what barriers have you experienced? What I've noticed when I teach and talk about meditation is that oftentimes we picture just this right here, this person sitting in this perfect yogic pose, legs crossed, feeling very peaceful. And the reality is that meditation can already be challenging enough without trying to have this perfect pose, perfect posture. So what I encourage you to think about is meditation as this stream of awareness, and it's coming in without judgment and leaving. So it's kind of like this nice little flow of the mind is going to tend to take over and want to pull you away from that peaceful kind of feeling within your mind. And then we just pull it back. So, what we know is that also this practice was started thousands of years ago, literally over 2,500 years ago, from a yogic tradition in India. And so, this is why we also get this view of this person sitting so quietly, because they were able to practice this perhaps sometimes several hours a day. And this started with a person named Siddhartha Gautama. And if you aren't sure who that is, I'll give you a hint. That is also the person that was known as Buddha, Buddha or the awakened one. And basically, Buddha recommended that people practice meditation, practice mindfulness so that they could experience their misperceptions of reality that contributed to stress, to suffering. And what that means is that basically we want to we want to live with joy, we want to live with peace, but oftentimes just in the human experience we have stress in our lives. And so is it a perceived stress or is it a real stress? So this is one of those ways that we can really tune into that. And then going back to that practice of the mind, we're never really going to completely clear our mind. There's not really such a thing because our mind is here to protect us. It's here to be thinking about the next thing and just kind of watching out for us. So, as I started to mention, using that rubber band method is what I call it, of knowing that the mind is going to kind of get away from us, but that we can pull it back, that we can begin to control the mind, that the mind doesn't control us. And one of the number one excuses or reasons I hear from people that they don't meditate is because they say they're not good at it. Well, what I would question or ask you to consider is when have you ever started something and been really good at it right away? So this is a practice. This truly is something that you can bring in even 1 minute a day, 5 minutes a day, and continue to practice it, because I promise you it was not easy for me either when I first started. But also the other thing is that it can be whatever it needs to be for you. So if you like a seated practice, if it's just during the day at your desk and you want to take that 1 minute of intentional breathing, that is meditation. For me, meditation is that I lie flat. I like to lie down, cover my eyes, and really go allow myself to go into a restful place. I listen to either a guided meditation or something that is going to help walk me through a time, like a time period. So I want to limit it to maybe 20 minutes a day. Now, some people might find that really difficult to be seated or to lie down. So I encourage you to also look at a walking meditation. If it's something that you need to be a little bit more in movement, there are a lot of options out there for walking meditations as well. So remember that prayer, movement, sitting, lying down, intentional breathing are all forms of meditation. So this is where we start to look at the layers of our body. So this is a yogic practice or yogic philosophy around the sheaths of our entire body, our whole self. So we start with what we know, of course, very intimately and very well is our physical bodies. So that Anamaya kosha. This is our skin, our bones, our muscles, like the physical body that makes up who we see every day around. People we work with, people out in the world. We always see that part of people first. But this part of the physical body is about nourishment and it's about movement. So, what we take into our body through food, and then how we are moving our body throughout the day. Then we go a layer deeper, and this is the breath body, the pranamaya kosha. This is what's going to help with our autonomic nervous system. So as we breathe, as I talked about earlier, that inhale, we're receiving, and the exhale and letting go. If you've ever noticed when you've been nervous to speak or go into a meeting where you know you're going to have to present something and you're just a little bit nervous, you will notice maybe that your breathing gets shallow. And that's a protection within your body that it is starting to fire on all cylinders, so to speak, and protect you and take in a little bit more air to help you, regulate your nervous system. Well, what I also encourage people to consider is if you really think about it, we're born and we die. And we have so many breaths in between those two spaces. Do we want to go through all those breaths quickly, or do we want to learn to slow them down and allow for us to have a little bit better breathing practice and allow for more breaths all the way to the end of our life? So I encourage you to, next time you just notice that you're breathing shallow, that you take that nice big long inhale and that nice big long exhale. And then we go into the mental emotional body, the Manamaya Kosha. And the Manamaya Kosha is about mindfulness and meditation. So this is going a layer deeper. So we have that physical body, we have that breath body, but those work together to help us with the mindfulness and meditation practices that we bring in. Is this a layer that we need to spend a little more attention or pay a little more attention to? What is the level? So far, have you noticed, is there one that I need to focus on a little bit more than the others? And then our wisdom body is the Vijnanamaya Kosha. And this starts to get into really our values, our ethics, what is really important to us, and how we operate on a daily basis that lives in alignment with those values and ethics. And oftentimes, what I'm working with people on in this layer is just simply boundaries. So, what is important to you? Where are your values and your ethics? And where are you maybe not allowing yourself, maybe you're over giving in some space, and just reminding yourself that you want to bring in those boundaries. And boundaries can be really challenging, but when we really tie them back to what's important to us and how we want to live, then that is a good reminder. And then the last layer is the Anandamaya Kosha, the bliss body. And this is that higher self, higher consciousness, where our body, our every layer knows what we need, the most, and where we can rest with ease. And this creates this whole entire body, this whole entire self. And this reminds us that we are more than just our bodies. We're more than just that physical part of our bodies. So as women, caregivers, men, everybody here, every layer deserves attention. So where do I need to put my focus? Again, back to that question. So, continuing into a little bit more about how this philosophy supports us. As I mentioned, the Anamaya Kosha is about having a healthy body or helping us with those lifestyle choices. So that can be, intentional lifestyle choices around nourishing foods, nourishing movement that's going to bring us joy when we do it, not a punishment, right? So that is when we think about the Anamaya Kosha, that is about the physical healthy body. And then the Pranamaya Kosha is the breath body. So this is really practicing that breathing with intention. And again, it might be just to start with 1 minute a day, just like what we did earlier, kind of doing that moment where we tuned into our breath as an anchor, and then we did a few rounds of the box breathing. And the nice thing is you could be anywhere. You could be in your car, you could be in a meeting, and no one is going to really know that you're even doing this. But when we consciously bring it in, it helps remind us to practice that breathing to help with our autonomic nervous system to go from fight or flight to rest and digest. And then the Manamaya Kosha, again, is that healthy mind, healthy emotions. This is, again, about meditation and calling in relaxation and rest. And there's a lot of different options for rest. I think that oftentimes in our world, we've gotten to the point where we are scrolling on our phones and we're calling that rest. And the reality is it's not really true rest. So, meditation can be one of the practices. Sometimes rest just comes in the form of honoring that maybe one morning you wake up and would typically go to the gym, and you're like this, you think to yourself, this morning I need to rest. This tunes into that layer about our values, about our ethics, about what's important to us as well. So, of course, those layers kind of work from one to the next. So, the mindfulness, healthy mind, meditation, relaxation, rest, what does that look like for you? And where do you need to call in more of that? And then Vijnanamaya Kosha is about that healthy introspection and talking about what is important to me and clarifying what matters to you. There's a practice that I have all my clients go through, and it's called the VIA character assessment. It's completely free. It does take, I think, about 10-15 minutes to go through, but I would encourage you that could give you a great start for looking at what your strengths are, what's important to you, and start to call in those practices and how they are going to show up in your life. And continue to be something that you bring forward each and every day. And then to healthy introspection with that Vijnanamaya Kosha. So what is important to me is, well, I guess I just covered that. So what is important to me is through that layer. And then the higher self, the Anandamaya Kosha, is recognizing when you have arrived. And, we may always be kind of seeking, we might consider ourselves seekers, a place where we want to continue these practices and know that we never really arrive at a specific place, but the arrival might be, I've learned how to rest. I've learned what I need. I can voice what I need. I can create boundaries for myself. I can eat nourishing foods and feel good. I can nourish my body through healthy movements. So, all those different things will help you continue to bring all those pieces together. So let's look at the science of meditation in a little more depth. And I love this quote that as the breath moves, so does the mind. So again, we know that the mind and the breath are all of it's connected, just as I walked you through all of this. And what we also know is that 1 in 5 adults have some sort of mental concern or issue, and that can range from anxiety and depression to things like bipolar or PTSD. And meditation is really one of the practices that's going to help rewire the brain and is truly science backed. There's now hundreds, if not thousands, of studies that have proven that there are literal physical structural changes in regions of the brain that are about the emotion regulation, self-awareness, all those things. So, other benefits beyond just clarity and ease as we practice more and more is that we can also make our brains younger. How great is that? So, we can look at the cellular aging is regular practice is linked to longer telomeres. So when you get into the science of this, if you really enjoy that kind of thing, I invite you to further explore that. But ultimately, the telomeres are the protective caps that are on chromosome ends, and they're like plastic tips on a shoelace, if you've heard of that before. But basically, the shorter the telomere, that eventually stops cell division and can lead to cells kind of dying off. So mindfulness helps preserve them and actually lengthen them, and even lowering cognitive stress. So it's definitely, again, proven through science that this is a method to help us live longer and healthier lives. We also, through this practice, have the immune response. So we're going to have a reduction in inflammatory markers. We're going to have an improved immune function. As I talked about the nervous system, and that pranamaya, that breath practice is going to directly shift that autonomic nervous system from sympathetic or fight or flight into parasympathetic, which is rest and digest. And then we're also creating new neural pathways. And I know it sounds kind of funny, but the saying, you can teach an old dog new tricks. It's kind of that same concept, that it doesn't matter how old you are, no matter when you start, you are going to start to create new neural pathways, because that consistent practice is going to rewire the brain. It's going to help with less reactivity and more resilience. And lastly, of course, stress reduction. We are living in a time where we are in high stress. We are having information come at us from all angles all day long. And so, this is, again, one of the practices of meditation, of intentional breathing, all those things is one of the most evidence backed non pharmacological stress interventions available. And it's completely free. So let's look at the state of emotional being. This is one of my favorite emotional guidance scales. And why I like it is because, and I hope you can see it large enough to be able to see some of those words, but it gives us, more description in terms of our feelings. I think that we oftentimes will live in 4 or 5 feeling states. So we're happy, we're sad, we're mad, we're tired, or whatever it is. And these give us a little bit more depth in terms of what we're looking at in terms of our emotions. So where am I at on that scale today? And if I'm too high on the scale, which actually is, maybe more low technically, that might be that I'm feeling overwhelmed, I'm feeling anxious, I'm feeling reactive. I'm going to tune into box breathing, which we practiced, or that grounding body scan, which is just simply going from the top of our head and then just scanning through the whole body down to the tips of our toes, noticing where maybe tension is rising up, maybe there's a temperature change, maybe we're noticing, anything that's just bubbling up in our body. And then the loving kindness meditation, which we are going to practice today. That's one of my favorites. So maybe we're also in this space of being too low, and that we're looking at maybe feeling really lethargic, feeling maybe even numb or disconnected, and might be more helpful to tune into a diaphragmatic breath. And that's going to help energize us. It might help to consider some intention setting. So, to help draw us from the space, we know that life is going to go up and down, and we just need those tools and practices to bring us back up. And that includes a gratitude practice. And I know oftentimes people will kind of like, oh, gratitude practice is maybe doesn't feel like very, very helpful, or that you find that you're kind of practicing the same gratitude every single day. Like, oh, I'm so grateful I have a roof over my head. I'm grateful I have a car and a job. And, feeling these kind of these similar things are over and over. But what I encourage you to do is look at these feelings or these emotions on this chart, and attach that to the gratitude. So, for example, you might feel very grateful for your family because they give you and they give you enthusiasm. You're enthusiastic about what you have planned with them, whatever it is. So, taking the feeling and attaching it to the gratitude. You might be grateful for your job because you feel hopeful that maybe there's a space for you to grow in your position. Just different things like that. So, taking that again, that feeling, and attaching it to the gratitude. So our goal is, of course, right there in that bubble, the regulated zone. So right in between. So if we now have some practices and tools if we're feeling anxious, or some practices if we're feeling kind of low and lethargic on that scale. So let's look a little bit closer at how 10 minutes in a daily practice could look. I like to call it the Zen in 10. And this is a daily practice that we can look at each of those layers and do first that 2-minute body check in. So a head to toe scan. And we'll practice this. We'll walk through these, and then let's practice it. So doing this body check-in, a head to toe scan, and then noticing any tension, sensation, numbness, like we were just talking about, and how that grounds you in the physical layer before anything else. Then we spend a few minutes in box breathing or breath work. So it might be box breathing for anxiety or reactivity, or that diaphragmatic breathing for more feeling low or lethargic. And that's going to help regulate your autonomic nervous system directly. And then meditation through loving kindness, through rain, through breath practice. That is what builds the new neural pathways and lowers stress markers over time. And then ending with that intention and gratitude, a couple minutes there, one value that's guiding your day, one appreciation, activates that wisdom and bliss body, and then closes with a sense of rest. So, we're not going to spend a full 10 minutes here, but I just want to invite you to take a minute to embody this. So, let's do a minute here where you do on your own a head to toe scan. So you might start at the top of your head. A couple of places that I like to note is the forehead, noticing if there's any tension around the eyebrows, maybe even behind the eyes. If you notice that behind the eyes, sometimes we get a little bit tense there, the jaw, the neck, the shoulders. And then going down your arms to your hands, going down the body, the front of the body into the hips, the legs, the knees, all the way down to the ankles. And just noticing, again, this is very quick, but just noticing if there's any space that just bubbles up any kind of sensation, tension, anything like that. And then just noticing your breath. Does your breath feel shallow in this moment? Is there a way to lengthen that inhale, lengthen the exhale? And then, as I mentioned, I'm going to practice with you today loving kindness. And I'm also going to share with you a little bit more about what rain is. And that's another practice that will help you in moments of awareness. And again, back to that breath awareness, and just noticing what the breathing feels like today. And then tuning into one value that's guiding your day today. So maybe even noting that on your notebook. What is it that you're feeling appreciative about? And what is the feeling that's associated with that? And then just noticing how you feel rested, restful, how that's helped you feel more grounded and kind of get us out of our heads and into our bodies. And then we're going to move into a little bit more about this meditation toolkit. And feel free to, if you have your phone and you want to take a picture of this might be a good way to remember some practices. You have that 1 minute pause throughout the day to midday, maybe reset your nervous system. RAIN is called recognize, allow, investigate, nurture. And the next slide is going to go a little bit deeper into talking about that. Progressive muscle relaxation is a systematic tension and release process. And that's another great tool just to help your body notice when it's in tension and that it can release it and start to do that more naturally without you having to do it more with intention. The more you practice it, the more natural it becomes. Box breathing for anxiety or reactivity, loving kindness for cultivating compassion for self and others. We're going to practice that. And like I mentioned, that walking meditation can be helpful with some mindful movement, especially for busy schedules or someone who has more difficulty kind of lying down throughout the day. Sometimes if we lie down, it can mess up like our whole sleep schedule and all that type of thing. And so walking meditation is a great option. And then yoga nidra, which is one of my absolute favorites. Oh, I've skipped over diaphragmatic breathing. That's belly led breathing for fatigue and low energy. Yoga nidra is one of my favorites. This is where I do the lying down, listen to a yoga nidra on my headphones, and it will walk you through an entire body scan and feels very deeply restorative. And then eye rest is something that I've learned about through my yoga therapy education, and it is for PTSD. But I do believe that it is such a helpful tool. So, definitely, if that's something that you want to look at, there's some different layers there that it walks you through, learning about your heartfelt mission, what your intention is, what your inner resource is, body sensing, breath sensing, and so on. So, RAIN is that mindfulness practice that I was mentioning as well. This might be, again, something you want to take a picture of this screen to help you remember this. But this is an opportunity to kind of tune into like what's if there's something that has your emotions escalated, to recognize what is kind of is happening. So we start to notice what's happening around us and our surroundings, recognizing what our thoughts are, our feelings are, our physical sensations, and then naming those feelings. Going back to that emotional guidance chart that might help you with naming your feelings and allow it and just kind of sitting with it. You might hear people say, I just need to sit with this. Allowing, observing, like watching a movie, kind of like you're an outside person watching what's happening, and see if you can notice it without judgment. And it's okay to feel however you feel throughout that. And investigation. So, investigating what words are running through your mind, where do the emotions come from, and just noticing this vulnerable part of yourself that's coming up. This is part of being human. And the more that we allow ourselves to notice that, the more space we're able to give ourselves for compassion. And then lastly, nurturing. So nurturing is being kind towards your experience, giving yourself some kind of comfortable or comforting message. Imagine love flowing to you until you feel calm and centered. And that is also loving kindness, which again, we're going to practice today. And then taking 3 slow, deep breaths and continue to be mindful and kind to yourself throughout the day. So when we think about integrating these habits, really want to focus with you on consistency over pressure or perfection. So attaching or connecting with that Zen intent to something maybe you're already doing as a habit stacking. So it might be making your morning coffee, or if you this was built originally in a healthcare environment, so before a meeting or making rounds or after charting or taking some notes from a meeting at lunch, anything like that that just feels like, okay, this is something I do every day. I'm going to do my 10-minute practice here, or even all the way down to that 1 minute of intentional breathing, anything to start small. So starting small, let the momentum build, and again, letting go of perfection and just working on being present. So what small practice can you commit to this week, and writing that down? What is the first step you can start this week? So this is our last slide before we do the loving kindness practice. And these are just a few resources. Again, if I was with you in person or not on a webinar, I would ask you or invite you to add in what else you are doing or what you're listening to. There's so much available to us from different apps such as Insight Timer, Calm, Headspace. Insight Timer is my favorite. I use that almost on a daily basis. It's free. And I think Calm and Headspace have free options as well. There's a lot of podcasts out there that are really great in terms of helping us with just tuning into different aspects of our life. So I like Dan Harris's 10% Happier. I do have a podcast as well, so I'd be remiss if I didn't share that as well. And then Know Thyself with Andre Duquam is also, it's pretty deep. It can get pretty deep. So if that's your thing, definitely check that out. And of course, we know that YouTube has hundreds, if not thousands and thousands of guided meditations, yoga nidras, body scans, all of these different practices. I think that one of the things when people get started is just narrowing down to, and this is what I like about Insight Timer, is you can narrow down to a beginner 5-minute practice. And so you can actually put that in the search bar, and you could probably do that on YouTube as well. But you can say, I want just a 5-minute breathing practice with nature sounds, if you like nature sounds, a 5-minute practice that's guided. And so sometimes it's just a matter of finding the right practice that works well for you, and you don't have to change it. If it works, you don't have to change it. I have done some of the same meditations over and over and over for years. So don't feel pressured to have to change it up every single day. And then some books. Full Catastrophe Living is about mindfulness-based stress reduction with John Kabat-Zinn. The Book of Joy was one of my favorites with the Dalai Lama. And then The Power of Now. If you struggle with staying in the present moment, if you kind of tend to bounce into the past or want to jump forward into the future, and that's where, of course, anxiety and worry really happen, that book is going to help us stay in the power of the moment, the present moment. Okay, so we're going to practice loving kindness. But before I do that, I want to talk a little bit about why loving kindness. It is specifically designed to cultivate an unconditional, kind of this kind, compassionate attitude towards ourselves and towards others. So it's different from those breath focused, more mindfulness practices, which is going to train attention, where this is going to train more of an emotional capacity in you, genuinely generating warmth rather within yourself rather than kind of observing. So I think that one of the things that I've found too in my time as a health coach is that people tend to be really hard on themselves. And oftentimes we don't realize kind of that negative thinking pattern and negative loop that happens. So I just really encourage you to start noticing that and then calling in more loving kindness to yourself as well. And there's a ton of clinical applications to this, from chronic pain, PTSD, and depression to anxiety, all those things. There's also been findings around compassion, and this meditation specifically can decrease employee burnout and stress and increase mindfulness and self compassion, personal mental health, all those things. So I do have to jump out of my share here just to pull up my loving kindness here. So I am going to go ahead and read this to you. And again, taking that comfortable pose, comfortable position that we started in the beginning. So feet flat on the floor, spine can be nice and tall. So feeling, relaxed, but also having that straight posture, shoulders relaxed, maybe roll them up, down, and back. And allow your hands to just simply rest comfortably on your lap. And gently close your eyes if that feels comfortable to you, and settling into awareness of the body, awareness of the breath, and just noticing what's here in this moment and being open to whatever is to be experienced in the body in this moment. Connecting to the breath and noticing the wave like movements of the belly. In this practice, we are going to cultivate loving kindness. We all have this within us, this natural capacity for loving kindness. Loving kindness is a natural opening of a compassionate heart to ourselves and to others. It's a wish that everyone be happy. We begin with developing loving kindness toward ourselves and allowing our hearts to open with tenderness. So, as you start to consider this compassion towards yourself, sometimes it's easier to even picture ourselves as a young child. So, if that helps allow more tender feelings to flow a little bit more easily, you can do that. And as you experience this feeling of love starting to kind of bubble up in your body, just noticing how it feels. It may feel warm. You may feel some heat in your face. You may smile. You may feel warmth in your heart, your chest. And just resting with this sense of feeling open and unconditional love for a few moments. And as we practice, there's a few phrases that I'm going to use, and you can change it to however you want these phrases to reflect the words that you want to use and express your wishes of loving kindness. I'm going to offer those words now. May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be held in loving kindness. May I feel connected and calm. May I accept myself just as I am. May I be happy. May I know the natural joy of being alive. And now repeating in your mind these words of kindness to yourself again. May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be held in loving kindness. May I feel connected and calm. May I accept myself just as I am. May I be happy. May I know the natural joy of being alive. Now I'm going to invite you to open up the circle of loving kindness to bring to mind someone who is dear to you. So, someone who you care about, who's always been supportive, and reflecting back to this person your appreciation for them. And begin with your simple offering. May you be filled with loving kindness. May you be held in loving kindness. May you feel my love now. May you accept yourself just as you are. May you be happy. May you know the natural joy of being alive. I'll bring to mind a more neutral person. So this might be someone you don't see, or you might see them regularly, but you don't know them very well. So it might be somebody you bump into at the bank or at the grocery store, or it might be a neighbor. And bring this person to mind now and repeat the words of loving kindness. May you be filled with loving kindness. May you be held in loving kindness. May you feel my love now. May you accept yourself just as you are. May you be happy. May you know the natural joy of being alive. And now, if it's possible for you, bring to mind someone with whom you've had maybe a more challenging relationship with. Perhaps it's someone that it's difficult to find compassion for them, or whatever it is. Whatever at this moment, is it possible to just let go of any feelings of resentment for a moment and reminding ourselves to see this person as a whole being, that they are deserving of love, deserving of kindness, as someone who, again, is human and feels pain and sadness just like all of us. And seeing if it's possible to extend to this person the words of loving kindness in your mind. May you be filled with loving kindness. May you be held in loving kindness. May you feel my love now. May you accept yourself just as you are. May you be happy. May you know the natural joy of being alive. For this last part, we're going to allow our awareness to open up into all directions. So, to ourselves, to the loved one, to the neutral person, to the difficult person, all the beings everywhere. Aware of all the joys, all the sorrows that all beings experience. May all beings be filled with loving kindness. May all beings be happy. May all beings awaken and be free. May all beings be happy. Now, bringing this practice to a close by coming back to extend loving kindness to yourself and just sitting for a moment in the energy of the loving kindness that may have been generated here today. All right, and joining me back here whenever you're ready, I just want to conclude by saying the gift of learning to meditate is one of the greatest gifts you can give yourself in this life. And I truly believe this. This was shared by Jack Kornfield, who is a teacher in the world of meditation. And again, I hope you received a number of tools and resources today that you can take with you in your own personal practice. So again, typically I would ask people to share takeaways or questions, but I would encourage you to write down what resonated with you today and what would you like to explore further, or what was one tool or one resource that felt helpful to you to continue to either begin or grow and expand your practice. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here, for your time, your attention, and your energy. And I believe I'm turning it back over to you, Johanna, to conclude here for us.
Yes, thank you, Sarah, and thanks for everyone who attended today. I loved that session. I think these are all great reminders, and the thing I enjoy the most is that these don't have to be big chunks of time throughout your day. You can just start to implement these, a few minutes here, a few minutes there. So If you are on and have our benefits, the EAP benefits, you have access to a whole lot of great resources, and we just have those listed here. I did mention at the very beginning, Sara is one of our life coaches. So if you're interested in doing life coaching, you would get a set number of sessions at no cost, and you could call into our 800 number, which is listed on the next slide. You could call the 800-327-4692 number and let our call center counselors know you want to do life coaching, and maybe Sara seems like she could be a really good fit for you, and you could specifically ask for Sara. So don't hesitate to call us about any of your benefits, as well as just if you need in the moment support, we're here for that. Our website, efr.org, has a lot of great information, as well as some upcoming webinars. I believe our next one is in September. And then we have one, everything starts with ownership with Ernest. So September 22nd, I have a QR code there. If you want to scan it, you can hop straight over to the registration page. So that's our next webinar with Ernest. And then I think we have one scheduled in October that we don't have posted yet. So more information to come there. But we have lots of great webinars coming up. This was great, Sara. Thank you so much for your time today, and of course your expertise on this subject. And I look forward to the next webinar, and I hope you get some life coaching authorizations here. So
Thank you. Appreciate it very much, and the opportunity. So thank
yes,
you.
and a few people have asked, will this recording be available? And it will be on our website later today. So look for that as well. So thank you.
Great. Thank you. Take care, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.